Welcome back to the Football Out West show. You're joining Craig Filer and myself, Tonchi Prusak, and we've got a very, very special guest, and he's joining us tonight. A very, very big warm welcome to Mr. Ivan Jolic, who's making a return to the show. Ivan, welcome back.
Thank you very much, Tonchi. Great intro. Pleasure to be back, and g'day, Craig. How are you?
Ivan, very good, mate.
Now, Ivan, it's since we last had you on here, geez, so much has changed, hasn't it? But you've been working very, very hard. In fact, you've been working hard just moments before you came onto this show, where you were having a Zoom conference with something like 100 coaches in the one session. Goodness me, tell us a bit more about that.
It was, I suppose, it's the way of the future. You know, Zoom meeting. So I've got a colleague that was that's a current TD, and he said, Ivan, would you be prepared to come on and share your experiences and so forth in coaching and bringing a playing style to life? And I did do it, and I had no idea that there'd be about 93 or 94 people on there, but thoroughly engaging. And once again, it just proves that, you know, there's many different forms of education we can get through now all around the globe. So it was a wonderful opportunity. My head's still spinning, so I do apologise if I'm a bit flat today, but I'll do my best, Tonchi and Craig.
Good man. We're going to touch on a few of the comments that you made there today about online learning, because I know it's very dear to our hearts. So we're certainly going to touch on that. And as we said, tonight's show is really all about coach education. But we're going to start off, I think, by just touching on the Matildas. You are the current assistant coach of the Matildas, and that must be a great privilege to be involved with that group of players at the moment. Talk us through how things are going. You know, obviously we've got the World Cup proposal coming to Australia and New Zealand. That'll be fantastic if that comes to fruition. So just talk us through to the Matildas and what's happening in that world.
Well, it's sort of an interesting period, as you know, Craig. Obviously, you're still trying to engage with your players and try to continue some form of education and development. We're in regular contact with the team. We have a weekly meeting with them. We want to know how they're tracking. We want to continue to monitor their wellness, both mental and physical. So there's actually a lot of work that goes behind the scenes. Unfortunately, the things we love to do is get out on the track, both as players and coaches, and that hasn't been possible. But that being said, there's a very exciting period coming up for Australian football fans and the women's game, and that is the imminent announcement of the 2023 World Cup. All the information we're getting out from headquarters is that they're very comfortable with their submission and proposal. I'm led to believe that there's a technical report coming out on how well Australia's presented and pitch, how well their pitch was received, and shortly after that there will be vote. So I think the region, the Australia-New Zealand region, through this pandemic has shown a really good ability of managing crisis and managing various parts that are going to be critical when you're hosting an event as huge as the Women's World Cup. So
Ivan,
fingers crossed.
Yeah, Ivan, I'm not sure if you're aware of when the proposal was submitted, but has the Australia-New Zealand, the ANZAC bid, has that had an opportunity to kind of update its proposal in view of the I guess the brilliant management, the social management that both Australia and New Zealand have done in the past couple of months with regards to the COVID crisis?
To be honest, Tonchi, I'm not privy to that information, but I would have thought if you're heading up the delegation and you're looking to promote yourself, you'd be mad not to get on the front foot and get onto the FIFA guys and say, have a look at what we're doing. Have a look at the curve. It's flattened. We're managing it, and we're now got a rescue or a reintegration sort of policy and strategy moving forward, where, you know, much of football and life in and around Australia and New Zealand is slowly returning back to normal.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely. I think that's a really good point. And if you're part of the committee that's making the decision, you surely got to look at that and you know what's happening around the world in Brazil. Because who are the other candidates? Brazil.
Well, I could look. I'm not again. I've spent a lot of time in that space, but I think Japan's also having a look, and there'll be others. But the stability, the governance, the facilities, and all of those things, I would have thought that stack into our favour, as well as having a joint bid with someone across two confederations. So us being part of the Asian Confederation, and the New Zealanders being part of Oceania, I think is seen very, very favourably.
Yeah. Ivan, your gut feeling, last time we went for a World Cup, the situation was, hopefully the situation was completely different, because you'd like to think that we do stand a chance. I mean, obviously we're going to be biased. We're going to say we've got the best bid and everything, but I guess you're probably more aware than most people. What's your gut feeling say? Do we really stand a good chance?
I think so. I honestly do. And again, I can't be assured of anything in life, but I can tell you that all of the communications from the FFA headquarters through to the players, the staff, also from within the PFA through to the players, is that we're a real chance. As you know, you never know in football, just like any game of football. So I think the most important thing is, are we comfortable, and are our stakeholders comfortable with the submission they've made, and making sure that no stone is left unturned. And from all reports, they've pitched really, really strongly. And I know when the FIFA delegation was out here that they were quite impressed with our facilities and our plan. We also took on the Olympic qualifiers on really short notice, through the COVID pandemic. And that was sort of in and around the time that FIFA guys were here. And, our capacity to just turn on a tournament, a major international tournament, quickly and run it as successfully as it was, is a credit to all of the people within our game.
No, fantastic, and it'd be really superb if we could host the World Cup. So fingers crossed.
Before we move on to the next point, Ivan, what will that, in your opinion, do to the women's game?
It's a massive injection. Massive injection, and I was fortunate enough, guys, to go to a Women's World Cup in Europe last year, and just the magnitude and size of the event, and it just encapsulates all of the world. It's incredible, and it's not. It might be called the Women's World Cup, but every football follower around the globe takes an interest, from Asia to Africa, all around. So in terms of what it would do to us, it brings a truly global sporting event of a huge magnitude to us, and promotes not only us and our football and our cultures, but our country as a whole. So the net effect of us having a World Cup final economically would be terrific. The net effect for our sport and the boost it will give, once again, a shot in the arm to participation numbers, and then government investment. I genuinely believe our governments, see us as a bit of a poorer cousin, but when you've got the ability to showcase your country to the world like no other code or no other sport outside maybe the Australian Open, and to a certain degree the F1 Grand Prix, a month-long tournament here where you are front and centre on every global newspaper and so forth, the governments and state and federal governments will start to invest, and that can only help our code.
Oh, absolutely. Craig?
We'll move on. Well, I've touched on the Matildas there. We want to really delve now into to coach education. I know that's a real bugbear for you. You've been very much part of the Football Federation of Australia's coach educator program as a coach educator. In your opinion, Ivan, where are we with coach education in this country, given the fact that for 4 months, most people have been stuck to their houses, not allowed out to do any coaching, not allowed to go and do any coach qualifications? Have we missed an opportunity here to do some online? You've just said you've been online for this evening to 100 coaches in Singapore. Why couldn't we have done those sort of things here with our coach education team for the coaches to develop our coaches through this period?
It's a fair question, and a tough one, because ultimately a lot of the time I'll always say before casting an opinion, and in particular mine, you need to understand the context, and the context is it's complex. You know, we're part of an AFC, part of the AFC, and our coach education needs to be signed off by the AFC. So there's a bit of bureaucracy to get these things up. Rest assured, if we go back to the start of the question, where are we with coach education? I firmly believe that our coach education is continually evolving. And I can say, honestly, being in the national teams that the people that are, leading our coach educators, like people like Sean Douglas and Anthony Frost, they are in continual communication with the national team staff across men's, women's, juniors and seniors. And the reason they're linked into a lot of what we do and our reviews and so forth is to make sure that, we're giving them what's happening at the coalface and some trends that we experience. And then they bring that and hopefully can share those experiences and build a coach education platform, which can then continue to improve our offering and bring us up to speed with best practice. So from that point of view, I think the communication lines with what's actually happening in the world game and what we then deliver to our coaches is quite good. They're very receptive and open to changes. In terms of the online platform, I think there's a huge opportunity for everyone to move closer to what our universities are doing. We've seen universities moved into an on-learning platform to make it even more accessible, maybe even drive some costs out. And I know for a fact that the FFA are working closely on trying to expand their offering in the area. Unfortunately, it never happens quick enough. Enough. So I know that they've had a range of, Zoom type of seminars. Is it a lost opportunity? Well, in hindsight, we'll look back and go, it would have been really good that we could have prepared for this. But unfortunately, there wasn't the time to prepare. I'd like to think that the FFA is moving towards, making it more accessible, making it easier, making it cheaper. I know these things are all part of their mandate. So hopefully in the future, Craig, and I do know that they're working on it.
Yeah, look, I mean, when we had you on last, Ivan, and since then, I mean, 5 weeks, 6 weeks have elapsed. So much has changed. We really, really lamented the lack of online presence for our coaches or online coaching, learning opportunities. But Craig, next week we're going to have two gentlemen from the player development program who will be talking a little bit more about that as well. But they offer a lot of that kind of stuff. And there seemed to be, in the last month in particular, lots of webinars, lots of seminars. But it's that one fundamental thing, I guess, that we're looking at, the coaching accredited courses, the C license, B license, A license, the community courses, etc. That is the one thing that is lacking at the moment. And Ivan, you've got a really interesting personal story to tell about that. Like when you were actually, you weren't able to attend a course, and so you had to now wait until the next time that course rocked around. That wouldn't be the situation if we had online learning available to us.
No, look, and they're the challenges we had. So the way these courses are structured, there's obviously protocols that must be followed. So, I started another course with the FFA, and thankfully, I was on it, but unfortunately I couldn't actually commence it because I had to miss a module. So that lack of flexibility, and maybe I was one of the first ones to experience what I did, and as a result, hopefully the FFA, and I do know that they're sort of taken up, and that is to make sure that they are flexible, because one thing that I'm always conscious of is the best form of coach education for any coach is to actually be coaching. Yep. But we need to make sure that the coach education courses, when they're delivered, are actually flexible enough and can be bespoke enough to actually be able to facilitate coaches who can't make it because they're coaching. So the coach, there's some structures in place now which aren't as flexible as what they probably would like, the FFA would like to be. But again, they're working towards that. But it was disappointing. I'm being frank. Like I was coaching at a World Cup, miss a module, but I can't start that course now. We have to get in line with the rest of the world. There's CEOs, there's really high-powered directors in places who can now pick and choose when they can go on to modules of, their master's degrees and PhDs, and that's where this is heading. And I think if we can get there quick enough, I think we could really start to generate good money from it, because you start to open up your courses and your borders to people abroad.
But it's, the other thing, though, by offering that type of online module as well, you're probably cutting out a lot of costs. So in effect, you could probably then keep the cost of the actual courses themselves down, hence adding to that accessibility, correct?
100%. And that being said, though, with everything, it's just like coaching. You gain something and you lose something. So yes, you gain accessibility. Yes, you gain, maybe you're reducing costs because of overheads and so forth, but you lose something else, and that is the human interaction. I've gone on to courses, and I can say that, the human interaction during lunchtimes, during in between modules, or in the evening on live-in courses, they're fabulous. Like when you sit down with people, or can sit down with Craig or you at a course, and you share your experiences, but you can't do that on a Zoom module. So, you gain stuff and you lose stuff, and getting that balance right is critical to ensure that we continue to be, one of the leaders in coach education.
We're talking to leading coach educator, the current assistant coach of the Matildas, and also the future, the current coach of the future A-League side, Macarthur FC, Ivan Jolic. Ivan, it's an absolute pleasure having you, and having you for the second time on this show. This is absolutely fantastic. Mentoring, coaching, mentoring, something that's very, very close to your heart. And Craig, we've heard this time and time again from a lot of coaches that have come on here, and even some of the people that have come on our talkback shows. Once you've done the course, there seems to be no support in place, no mentoring. Ivan, you actually are heavily involved in that side of things. Tell us a little bit more.
Well, look, I do run a little business that, I enjoy doing, but I suppose let's give it some context. And that is that when I was a coach educator, we deliver what we think is a pretty good course whilst we have the coaches. And I'll always say it's not important what happens in your development when I'm there. I know what's happening when I'm there. It's when I'm not there that matters the most. And ultimately, coaches feel a bit sort of on the own and isolated after a course, and I think it's critical that you do have a critical friend or a mentor to ensure that you continue to grow as a person, be it as a player or as a coach. And I think that is one of the shortcomings, not only Australia's coach education, but globally. I don't know. I haven't heard of anyone who has a mentoring process or an ongoing development, professional development sort of arm linked into coach education, which ensures that there is ongoing development for that coach after they come into a course. And it's like doing a maths class, but the teacher, then you don't see her for 3 months, and you just ask the kids, well, I've given it to you. So it's that gradual and incremental learning and support that's needed, and that's where football clubs and senior hierarchy at football clubs need to acknowledge that and provide education, ongoing education through technical directors, and provide an environment which is supportive and growth. How many of our coaches go on a C license? They're going to make mistakes. That's normal. I went to a World Cup. I made mistakes. It's normal. The problem is how many of the current environments are supportive of that and acknowledge that this is part of the learning. And we lose so many coaches because there's a lack of support, one, within their environment, and two, from, a coach education stream.
Well, often when you attend a business conference, sorry, Craig, I was just going to say, when you attend a business conference, what's the statistic? As soon as you come out of the conference, you've lost about 50% of what you've forgotten 50% of what you've learned. A week later, you've lost about 80%. A month later, I think it's like 95%. So if you don't have that flow, that follow-up mentoring or guidance or something like that, that's going to prompt you to do some of the things that you learned at the course, you're going to forget it. It's almost like you've wasted that money. Sorry, Craig, I interrupted you.
No, I want to touch on, because you mentioned it there, Ivan, in your speech. Technical directors, could they play a more active role in the coach education side once you've got your certification, you've been on a coaching course, you've gone back to your clubs? For me, it's a lot of coaches. I see a lot of coaches that have got this C license and are then just thrown to the wall and say, right, you've got your license, now go and coach. Well, actually, that's the start of the process, isn't it?
Absolutely. Technical directors play a pivotal part, and ultimately, from what I've seen at NPL level, and this is a generic statement, it's not specific to one club, it's not a blanket statement, but from what I see, the technical directors aren't actually fulfilling the role that I would see a technical director doing. What is the best practice technical director? Well, that should be someone who's experienced enough, and an educator, providing an environment and bringing the vision and philosophy of that club to life. Right, and ultimately, clubs and senior directors at clubs need to value a technical director in the first instance, and I'm not sure that's the case. But these same clubs are all chasing another set of coaches come the end of the season, leading into a new season, because they all leave. So it's just this vicious cycle where invest in a good technical director, provide a supportive, growing environment. There's going to be some pain and maybe cost you even more in the first instance, but through that environment, coaches won't leave. And then in the long run, you've made an investment, right? But I honestly believe technical directors have a huge role to play. I just don't know that they're currently fulfilling the role that they should be. And from what I hear, a lot of it is just administrative stuff that they get caught up in.
In your experience, Ivan, do you find technical directors who are external from the club, i.e., they don't have a child playing at the game, or they're not actually from that club and maybe have a vested interest? Do you find that technical directors that come from outside the club tend to do a better job or a worse job because they don't understand the culture of the club, or is it just purely down to the individual itself?
I'd say it's an individual. I'd say
I knew he was going to say that.
I honestly do. And in the end, what I say is that irrespective of the person you employ as a football club, I think the first thing you need to do is, one, you need to interview candidates and ensure that you have a person who fits the values and beliefs of your football club. And conversely, when you're a technical director or a candidate coming in for a job, the first thing you should ask is, what do you as a club stand for? What is your vision and philosophy for the technical director? And then what is your role and responsibility? So how many technical directors would have a clearly defined job description? So at the end of the day, if you don't have this grand vision, which is a vision and philosophy and the values and beliefs of a football club, and then you don't have a clearly defined job description where there's clearly defined roles and responsibilities, then what the hell are you doing? I honestly wouldn't know what to do on my first day at work. I don't know where the goalposts are, and I don't know what I'm doing with other coaches or the club.
But isn't the role then of that technical director then to go and implement that strategy? So,
and again,
give him the autonomy to say there's going to be some pain, there's going to be some mistakes, but we've sat down, you've taken me on because I fit your values and what you're looking to do. Now let me do it in a way that's going to bring everybody together.
And again, that's the acceptance of both parties.
What I see is a technical director going into a job because he's a technical director and he's got a license that makes him able to have that, because all clubs have to have a TD. But there's not many good TDs around. I think we spoke, I'm not sure whether it was on the show that you were on last time, where George Cross, technical director, George Gero, was on, and he's come into the club there, looked at the philosophy of what the club want, and has been given autonomy to go and do his job. Granted, he's in full-time employment there, but he's been given the autonomy to go and do the job and develop the young players and the coaches around him. And I'm sure over time, the success of that club will be based on round what's happened this season that'll take him into the next season and the next season. Give people the opportunities to do so.
Well, Craig, it's the usual thing of any organisation, and the football clubs are structured and should be operating like any organisation. They've got incoming money and outgoings. And what I say is you employ people based on their skill set, because generally that's what you need. You're buying skills. So what I say is, if you're employing an expert, a technical director, you're employing him for a reason. He's an expert in a certain field. And if you're paying him, can you just allow him to do his job? Set some goals, set some targets so that he has some key performance indicators that you can, put times and make it timely so that, we can catch up in 3 months, 6 months at the end of the year and make him and hold him or her to account. But ultimately, I think it's what you say, Craig, and that is that a lot of clubs are short-sighted, narrow-minded. They do things because they have to, not because they see the value in it. And ultimately, if you don't see the value in it, you're destined for failure. And I'll always maintain one thing. It costs you more in the long run.
Yeah. I just want to bring up a comment. We talk about George Gero, who's actually had involvement in football Victoria level, being involved in development and coaching, leadership and education. Yeah. So I mean, you're talking about a high caliber person who's being involved in the club. His president, Mark Sultan, has just put up a comment there in the comment section. George, great asset. I want to bring to your attention that word asset. It's not an expense. It's not a chore. It's an asset. So that's a great example of a club that is treating its technical director as an asset, not as, well, the Federation tells us we got to have one, so we better put someone down on paper, or we'll just put someone and we'll get him to do, empty the bins out, or he can coach one of the other teams when there's no coach there, or he can do this, or he can do that. It's an asset. An asset is there designed to help you build your brand, build your business. That sums it up. That sums up the positivity of a club that really wants to go somewhere. So congratulations, well done to him.
Yeah, and there are lots of clubs out there like that, Tonch. They're not every club is bad. Not every bad technical director. There are some really good ones out there.
We want to hear from some of those clubs, don't we, Craig?
Sorry?
We want to hear from some of those clubs. We want you. If you're one of those clubs, pop it down in the comments section. We want to know about your technical director and some of the great things that he's doing at your club. Craig,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Finally, for part one of the show, and we're going to get our second guest on very, very shortly. Ivan, you're going to stay on the screens if you will. But I just want to touch on the Macarthur FC project. Now, obviously, you're heavily involved with the Matildas at the moment, but when does your role officially start with Macarthur? And where are Macarthur in terms of planning for next season?
Yeah, so we've very much started in earnest quite a few months ago, Craig. Sort of myself, Ante, and Mel in Pombiato, who's also another Victorian who's heading up the football department there. So we've literally commenced. COVID has put a bit of have stalled us a little, only because of the unknown. We've made some significant signings a few months ago, and ultimately, we're not in a position to announce that, primarily because the current season needs to complete. But we're a new club, so there's so much work to do. So there's training venues, there's equipment, there's staffing, there's players, all of those things. Where there's a kit supplier. All of these things are spinning plates in the background that we're currently working on feverishly, and as well as we can, given the uncertainty with next season and where it'll start and where the salary cap will be. But we need to tick off those boxes, because when it does start, we're all fully aware that the existing clubs, they can literally press a switch and turn on.
Yeah,
we can't. So we just need to make sure that in a truncated pre-season, which it will be moving into next season, we have the basics ready to go, or at least the platform and foundation set, so that we can get going to be ready for round one. Because the club's an exciting club. They're a proud club in a very proud region, and we'll have some teething problems in the first little while, but people will demand success in the football heartland of New South Wales, which is the southwest.
Fantastic, Ivan. Well, we look forward to do hang around. I know you're probably really knackered having been on that Zoom conference, but we really appreciate having your input. Now, before we do take a break and before we bring our ex-Socceroo legend and member of the Golden Generation, Craig Moore, onto the show, if any interested coaches want to know more about some of the mentorship that you do offer and some of the services you offer, how can they best contact you?
Oh, look, the email's rolling down there, and look, I do it. I've got a small stable of players and coaches who'd like to grow of all levels. You know, I've got some mums that just wanted some assistance. They're coaching their kids at under 12, and I work with some A-League professionals, both staff and players who just want to have a growth and a professional development plan in place, ongoing. So anyone who's interested, just contact me on the email below, and I'll be more than happy to help. It's a passion of mine as opposed to much more. But I've had some really good results and built some really solid relationships with my mentees. And like I said, they're from all levels, and I just enjoy doing it. And it gives me a really nice welcome shift from my day-to-day rigours as a coach in the performance area.
We've been talking to Ivan Jolic, assistant to Ante Milicic with the Matildas, and he's also